Yeah.
And how did you get from Wisconsin to Sinai Hospital of Detroit?
Well, that's an interesting story. I think some people may be interested in the connection. I was looking for, after I'd been on the faculty for a few years at the University of Wisconsin, I was looking for the opportunity to lead a division in MFM. It's called Maternal Fetal Medicine. And I was approached by Dr. Milton Goldrath, who had a very good friend of his who worked at the University of Wisconsin. His name was Dr. Ed Ehrlich. Dr. Ed Ehrlich was in the Department of Nephrology, Kidney Diseases. He and I knew each other. He knew I wanted to leave. He contacted Milton, and Milton came to see me and said, "Why don't you come and have a look at a position we have open at Sinai Hospital of Detroit?" So I visited here and found that there was a very warm and welcoming group of people. Milton and his wife, Joan, were very good to me, as was Alfie Sherman and his wife, Sandy. They were the two of the leading physicians in the department, and they encouraged me to come here. So I visited here a few times, saw other people like Dr. Seymour Ziegelman and Loretta, Jerry Weinberg and Didi, so the people's name may be familiar to people here. But it was a big department, and it was a well-developed department. It had a great reputation. I think one of the reasons I came here to this sort of hospital was because in this country, you had a range of hospitals that was not available outside of the country. You have hospitals that are purely run by universities or state or public systems, and then you have private hospitals. And some of the private hospitals, such as Sinai of Detroit, were affiliated with the universities, had their own independent residency, so there was the educational piece as well as the academic piece and the private practice piece all merged together. So it was
Did you explore other other hospitals before you made the decision to go to Sinai? I know you just said Henry Ford.
Well, I didn't because I felt comfortable at Sinai. My friends were going to be going there. It was like a fraternal organization.
Was the fact that there were so many Jewish doctors, did that play into your decision?
I think it did. I don't think it was the doctors as much as the environment. Everything about it was what it made me feel comfortable.
Talk about the environment. What was it like? You know,
well, they had rabbis. They had kosher kitchen. It was a very friendly hospital. It was small enough to be friendly and big enough to be good, and we worked very hard. The quality of care was very good, and our residents were all very comfortable with one another. There was a lot of kibitzing there. We had fun.
So the Jewish doctors, that was a dynamic. But what about the non-Jewish doctors who were there? Did they feel comfortable in the environment?
100%. Yeah, they were loyal to the hospital, and there was. In those days, those non-Jew, a lot of them were surgeons. The surgical group had a lot more than the medical. I was internal medicine, and it was the surgeons that had a much larger number of non-Jewish doctors. But I was very comfortable with everybody.
Did you ever think about going to another hospital in your time at Sinai?
Never. Did not. I was so involved and so grateful to be there that no, never. When I thought something like in that line was after close to finishing the residency to see if I would do a fellowship in something else. But I knew I wanted to do general surgery.
How did the hospital change, in your opinion, from the time you started working there until the end, in terms of its evolution and the quality of care, medical innovation, et cetera, et cetera? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, when it took me probably a couple of years or so to appreciate what the hospital has to offer and was offering me and everybody else. The quality of care, the compassion, the knowledge, the talent that was there. But as we neared the I would say, the end period where Jewish patients started to migrate, excuse me, to other hospitals in the suburbs. We started to decline in revenue. And that became, that was very, there was a shadow that was growing, and it was sad, but the quality of care did not suffer.
So let's start at the beginning. Where and when were you born?
Baltimore, Maryland, April 25th, 1923.
Let me do the math.
It wasn't so easy to get rotating internships. Most of the Jewish kids went to Jewish-sponsored hospitals.
Were there many in Baltimore? Or there are?
There's only one in Baltimore. It started out to be known as the Hebrew Hospital, but then they changed the name.
Sinai became known as a preeminent teaching hospital.
Absolutely, absolutely. After we got our full-time chiefs in there and we developed our training programs, I would say that Sinai Hospital, you see, before Sinai Hospital was sort of junior brother to places like Harper and Henry Ford. But I can tell you, when we reached our peak, you know, and that would have been in the 60s, 70s, you know, we were the most academically oriented hospital in Detroit.
It was, you know, I've been told it was a very innovative hospital too. That there were lots of programs that evolved out of Sinai Hospital. And
Yes.
so
yes.
talk a little bit about the kinds of things that were established
Well,
at
first
Sinai.
place, we had good research done at the hospital. We had a chief of research, B.R. Foa, who was head of research there, and he stimulated a lot of publications that came out so that all of us developed in our own specialties. We all became involved academically, associated with the university. There were many publications that came out of Sinai Hospital, and there was a lot of good work.
So in 1980, when I first started, I knew the history of Sinai. Somehow my parents told me the story about how Sinai was established because Jewish doctors didn't have a place to practice. And I was blown away that in my lifetime, Jewish doctors could not get on staff at hospitals. It was just unrealistic to me, yet that was reality. So I always had a sense of the history of Sinai Hospital from the Jewish background of it.
You didn't have any problems at your career stage going to other
No,
hospitals?
because in 1980 already, that was not an issue, yes.
Did that history have impact on you when you went to hospital?
Oh, definitely. I think
Tell me a little bit about it.
Well-
And some of the Jewish doctors who came to Sinai for that very reason.
Right. Well, I always appreciated the historical reason for it, and it made me respectful of what Sinai Hospital means to a community. So back in those days, there were a lot of Jewish doctors, obviously, at Sinai Hospital, so I really got to interact with some amazing people.
How did Sinai change between the time you started and the time of the sale?
Well, over the years, the Sinai continued to invest in its infrastructure, remodeling the emergency room, redoing the operating rooms, creating new wings, moving the library, making the library better, hiring people that were interested in basic research. And then economics began to take a hold on the hospital, and they couldn't go forward. So there came a time where the hospital was just doing its best to stay there. I'm sure if it just stayed there, it wouldn't have worked out, because economics for hospital systems, single hospitals, is not working out in America today. So we see mega mergers. We see now Henry Ford Hospital emerging with Ascension, and we see for-profit hospitals in Michigan, which probably was, in retrospect, was not a very good idea. So things changed gradually, mainly because of economic issues. But the basic principle of the hospital stayed for all those years: education, research, quality care, commitment to the Jewish community, commitment to the Detroit community.